Hello and welcome to this week's About Manchester podcast. With the build-up to the COP26 United Nations Climate Change Conference taking place in Glasgow this November, we have a green tinge to the show and two pieces for you. First of all, an exciting project has launched in Manchester which sees collaboration between two inner-city neighbourhoods, Harper Hay in North Manchester and Kangaweri in Nairobi, Kenya. Then we go to the Falkland Islands where we speak to a former master's student from Salford University who has been busy filming penguins. The organisers, Design Manchester and Nairobi Design Week, working with Manchester Climate Change Agency and the Kenyan Climate Change Working Group, will be sharing experiences and ideas about buying and growing food with recipes and tips about urban farming before they take what they learn to the wider community. Kasper de Graaf is Design Manchester's Director of Partnerships and Cities, and we spoke to him about the project.
Kasper, a project linking Harper Hay in North Manchester and a suburb of Nairobi in Kenya. How on earth did that come about?
Well, it's funny because that's Design Manchester, we organised the annual design festival in Manchester, and we have always had connections with designers elsewhere in the world. Many of them come and speak at our conference and so forth. But through the British Council, who run a program called Design Connections, we met the guy who runs Nairobi Design Week, Adrian Yankoviak, who is a really inspiring character. And it's through that relationship that we thought, when the British Council was asking for proposals for creative commissions to do with climate change in COP26, I thought, well, it'd be great to collaborate with Nairobi on it. I mean, we as a festival and as an organization, we've really looked at the role of design in cities and how design can help cities tackle different challenges. And we're doing that together with a number of other cities. But to focus on climate change with a country that is affected by it in such a different way, but it's a universal subject, I thought that would be really interesting. And the other great thing, of course, is that it's not just designers talking to each other, but really local neighbourhoods talking to each other.
Okay. Also, can you tell us a little bit more about the project for the listeners?
Well, the thing is, it's called Doing Zero, and it's both the doing and the zero are really equally important, because the question is, what can we do? We all know, we listen to David Attenborough, we see it all around us. We all know how important it is, but what can we actually do? We know that to tackle climate change, we need governments to do things, we need industry to do things. What can we actually do? Well, there is quite a lot that we can do in terms of the choices that we make, whether we take an aeroplane on holiday and all these kinds of things are the obvious things, but also in our daily lives, there are actually definitely things that we can do. But the things that are relevant for us to do, well, they're different from place to place. They're kind of hyper-local. We need to understand how our local actions relate to the bigger picture. And that's why it's so interesting to work with two communities that are affected in different ways, and we can really learn from each other. We decided to do a project where the communities think about the impact of food, nutrition, what we grow and what we eat on the environment. And we know in Manchester, for example, we know there's a big issue with how much meat we eat and how that meat is actually produced. In Nairobi, the question of food is a little bit more different. It's about food security when there are droughts. And, the meat question is different because most people have home-reared goats. It's not mass-produced meats. It's a different kind of question. And so we can learn from each other and also understand their situation and what the impact will be on them of climate change.
In choosing a place like Harper Hay, which is, not being funny about this, but it's one of the more deprived areas of Greater Manchester, probably one of the more deprived areas of the country in general. Do you think that the climate message gets through to those sort of people? Because a lot of people in those communities only see it as sort of costing them more money. So, for example, changing diet generally leads to more and more expensive shopping bill, for example.
If we all go into Whole Foods and buy oat milk and this, that, and the other, of course it's going to cost more money. I know exactly what you mean, but we're all in it together, aren't we? So climate change actually affects everybody. And so Harper Hay, in that sense, is a very deliberate choice. You are right that it has some of the worst health outcomes and life expectancy in the country, and there are some real problems there. But there's also a great spirit there, and people do want to do things. And the issue that we're looking at is what can we do ourselves, even in terms of what we grow and the choices that we make. So it isn't just a question of choosing more expensive things to do. It is understanding what the impacts are of the different choices and what things are available to us.
Okay, so what sort of things would you think people in Harper Hay should be focusing on then?
Well, this is an interesting thing because we're working together with a number of great organizations. There's the Sikh Festival. They are doing a program based on health and well-being where they're working in Mostyn and Harper Hay for a 10-year period. So that means that we can really deal with people on issues that matter to them, but also match the Climate Change Agency. So what we want to do is we want to work with the Climate Change Agency and scientists to develop information that's relevant to the locality. What do people generally eat? What are the issues to do with that? What are the alternatives? But the other thing is that we don't want to come in and say, okay, Harper Hay, this is what you've got to do. Hey, Kawangware in Nairobi, this is what you've got to do. This is not a top-down project. The intention is that we work with artists and designers, but mostly with the local community, and we co-design things with them that are about their lived experience. What's relevant to them? What can they do? I've personally found that people, regardless of their circumstances and their background, they do care. They do want to do things, and very often they are more caring of their neighbors and of other people, that they deal with than people who are really well off. You know what I mean? So we want to work with them as to what the solutions are. Urban farming is a great thing. How do we use our green spaces? What recipes are there? Look, we know that eating less meat. So say having a day or two in the week at least where you're not eating meat. What are the alternatives? Quite often cheaper. So it's not about money. It's about what people want to do. And the other thing is also that we talk about governments having to make and industry having to make things. But the more we ourselves as individuals are actually involved in trying to do something, the more we're also creating a political climate that allows governments to make the hard decisions that they're going to have to make.
Okay. This obviously feeds into the Zero Carbon Community Project, which is launching in a few weeks' time, and also into the COP26 in Glasgow. So what inputs from this do you think will be going into that, Kasper?
Yes, well, it's interesting. On the Zero Carbon Communities, it's great that the focus of Manchester Climate Change Agency and the City Council is actually very much on the same area. It's happened by chance that the projects happen to be so aligned, and that the neighbourhood communities team of the City Council are so involved with this question of what do we eat and what do we do, what is the implication of the Manchester Food Board. So we can work with them to not only make what we do or what the people of Harper Hay do themselves, together with the people of Kawangware, to make that as effective as possible in the time of the project, but also to spread that message broader, to spread the experience of that broader throughout Manchester. Well, and then of course there is the run up to COP26. The British Council, which is kind of the country's organisation of arts and culture around the world, so connecting us with places around the world, and they, I think, were very keen to get some of our creativity and our creative collaborations with people around the world to show what we can do and what our commitment is to climate change in the run-up to COP26, as we're obviously hosting it in November. So they have commissioned I think it's 14 projects, which are all community-based projects and which are all collaborations with other people overseas, to really have a go at this. I think that of itself is quite exciting. They've also teamed up with the WWF, the Worldwide Fund for Nature, which is doing a similar project and which we will also be collaborating with. So it all allows us to tell a story in the run-up to COP26 to give people a bit more awareness and hopefully also to make a small contribution into that thinking that's going on there.
Okay, that's lovely, Kasper. Hopefully, will you come back and talk to us a little bit more when you're a bit more into this project and tell us some of the findings?
I'd be really delighted to. And what I say, one thing that I also want to say, by the way, is we're working with a group of people called Standard Practice who built the Pilcrow pub in North Manchester with the community, with 600 members.
Okay, yeah, I know that, yeah.
We're going to take that into our kind of workshops and so forth. I'll be very happy to come back with you, again, back and talk more about the project and maybe bring some of the people from the community along.
A new series made by the BBC Natural History Unit and to be shown on CBBC follows 6 passionate and charismatic young filmmakers as they battle to protect the planet. We tracked down Erin Ranney, who is on a mission to find out why the captivating Rockhopper penguins are facing serious threats to their survival on the Falkland Islands.
So, we'll just let it flow. Can I start by, I obviously watched the film yesterday, and I'd just like to hear a bit more about how you got to love penguins.
Yeah. So I think, especially in the States, all little kids are fascinated by penguins. They're just this foreign animal. They're really cute and exciting and funny. And then on top of that, my grandpa, who I was really, really close to, he was our next door neighbor. We lived on the tree farm with him. He went down to Antarctica when he was 18. So he was this farm boy from this little conservative town, joined the US Coast Guard, went down and saw penguins. And we saw videos when we were little of him with the penguins, which you see in the film. So he shot all of that in the 1950s. And then, I just was fascinated with it and ended up going on a shoot down there and loved it, down to South Georgia. And we left from the Falklands, and I did 2 of those before I finally got to shoot in the Falklands for this one. But we found his letters too to his parents talking about penguins after he passed away. So it just kept getting fueled more and more.
When was he down in Antarctica? What?
In the mid 1950s. Okay.
What was it? What was he doing? What was his role there?
So he was working on an icebreaker with the Coast Guard, and he was a shipman's mate.
Okay. So you went down to the Falklands to film Rockhopper penguins. Can you tell us a little bit more about the Rockhopper penguin?
Yeah, I mean, they're this amazingly charismatic little penguin. They have those bright yellow tufts on them. Unfortunately, their population has declined by 80% since the 1930s. But yeah, they're a hardy little animal. They live on the cliffs. They go against these giant waves. They're just an amazing animal to watch and get to know.
Okay. Was there any problems filming them? Was there any specific, whether there was a problem around filming them, or was it an easy thing to do?
I mean, overall, it was pretty good. I was working with someone who was local, and they knew some great spots to go that hadn't really been filmed before. And yeah, it made it really fun, and it was all around. It was a really well-flowing shoot. We couldn't bring anyone else down because of COVID, so it was me, my partner, and then one extra person came and helped. But it did, that helps because then we're not shipping a bunch of people down. But yeah, it did make it trickier. I was the only camera person.
And what did you find out about them that you didn't? Obviously, you'd done some research about them before. But what things did you find out while you were there?
I think the biggest thing I found was when I was out, we joined Falklands Conservation, and that's an incredible group of scientists that are doing these studies and finding out how the rockhopper population is doing. And I think the thing that I learned more about was the fact that it's kind of this consistent pounding on the rockhoppers. It's not just one thing, it's multiple things. And climate change is kind of that thing that's throwing them over the edge, because now they're not having enough time to recover after these big storms, and the storms are getting more frequent, and the water currents are changing. So it's water temperature changing as well. And although some species have been able to recover, rockhoppers are more susceptible to these temperature changes, to these food changes. So I learned a lot from Falklands Conservation. It was amazing to have the chance to go out with them.
And the temperature changes and the storms are purely down to climate change, or we believe that, yeah?
Yeah, that's what scientists believe. They believe it is climate change.
Okay. And there was a fascinating thing in the film when you went to that beach that was full of plastic. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so not all the beaches look like that, but there are a few that are covered in plastic. And I've seen this in Alaska too, on remote islands where no one lives. There's plastic just from all over the world, and you can tell because there's different language in the writing on bottles. And it's pretty heartbreaking to see, because in some of the places I've been before, these animals aren't really seeing people, but they're seeing the remnants of people. They're still being affected by us, even though they can't see us. So it was pretty shocking to see, but at the same time, there's people in the Falklands that are doing beach cleanups, like locals are trying to get involved. And that was kind of a big theme for me, is people were doing as much as they could, and everyone was trying to get involved in helping.
Were you shocked by the amount of plastic there? Because the Falklands is a long way from any other landform, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's always shocking to see what humans are capable of, and to see the kind of plastic that we produce and how it spreads everywhere. So it's definitely shocking to see, no matter where you go, but especially remote places.
Okay. And what effect does the plastic have on penguins or the wildlife in general there?
Wildlife in general, I mean, so many species can mistake it for food and end up eating it, and then it causes their stomachs are no longer able to fit actual food in. They can get tangled in it, especially different nets and like twines. So there's all sorts of detrimental effects it can have. And it's not just one species, it's a lot of different species.
Okay. And the film was another lovely bit in the film when you were asked to count the penguins.
Yeah.
Tell us how you did that.
So they have a number of ways that they do penguin counts. So they do aerial surveys with drones. They'll do clickers like what I was doing. And it's a lot harder than it looks. There's these other birds in the colonies that we were at, not my particular little group I did, but they're shags, and they're also black, and they're similar size, and they're flying around, and you're sitting there going, oh, click, I'm not sure if I clicked this, I'm not sure if I didn't. So it's a lot harder than it looks. And yeah, it's very impressive. They go out and do tons of penguin surveys, and they're so fast. I was sitting there like 1, 2, 3, and he's over there going like 50, 60, 70, 80. I'm like, okay, I'm trying to catch up.
And I love your message at the end of the film. When it's the end of the film, you said when you were talking about protecting the environment, you said it's not about being perfect; it's taking steps in the right direction. Is that your philosophy in terms of what you think that we can do to combat change?
I think the big thing is I don't think we should put conservationists into this box of what they need to be. Okay. I really think that everyone can play a different role, and everyone has a different skill set or something that they can do to help. Whether it's like the little kids planting tussock or beach cleanups, there's little things we can do to help, or calling your political leaders. That's a huge thing you can do to help. But it's making those little choices and working on getting better. And I think especially with kids, not every choice is theirs. Like, what's on the dinner table isn't always there. You might not always have unlimited options. So making little steps, and everyone can talk about it. Everyone can spread the word. So I really don't think it's about being perfect. It's just taking steps and getting better.
Okay. We've got the big climate change summit in Glasgow where are we now? About 6-7 months' time. What do you think might come out of that? What are you hoping to come out of that?
I mean, I really hope that people are doing more action and less just talking about it. I hope we're able to have politicians do more action. It's one thing to talk about it, but for people who are in power to actually do something is a whole different thing. And I'm seeing it talked about all over the place. Like I said before, I come from a small conservative logging town, and I'm seeing loggers and tree farmers talking about climate change because the trees they're planting are going to be affected by it. And it's becoming a conversation, and maybe these occupations that, aren't believed to actually be aware of it, but they really are. And it's really affecting them. So I'm hoping we can all, I'm very optimistic. I hope we can all come together and see that this is a massive issue and we actually need to work together and use everyone's skills and knowledge.
Okay. I mean, your film's one of 6 that's been put together by the BBC. What message do you hope would come out to the children that are watch those programs? Sorry, my voice is
No, you're good.
Did you get that question?
Yeah, I did. I got that question. I hope kids just get excited and see that there's things they can do to help. And there's like little things, big things, and everyone from every background has a role that they can play. And they should be excited about it. I hope that they come out optimistic and seeing that they have the tools in their hands to make a difference. Okay.
You're not going to tell me where you are now, but can you give us any other plans for what you're going to be doing over the next few months?
I am in full shoot mode, full secret shoot mode over the next few months. I'm working on a long-term project at the moment, and it's a lot of incredible women involved and a lot of amazing animals. So I'm very excited.
Okay, that's lovely. Thank you so much for your time, Erin. It's been lovely.
Yeah, thank you.
And I wish you all the success and carrying on what you're doing. And we look forward to seeing the film, I think, which is on in a few weeks' time on CBBC.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. I have a soft spot in my heart for Manchester. I did my master's in Salford.
Did you? But at Salford University?
University of Salford, yeah.
Okay. How long ago was that?
That would have been, I think, 2014 to 2015.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, it's a nice place. Lovely place. All right. Probably not as warm as where you are now.
No, definitely not. You can tell I'm not used to this warm weather. Nice pink tone with lots of sunscreen.
Excellent. All right. Thank you so much, Erin.
Thank you, Erin, for